everybody another minute to get set.
Get them get all the hate now?
Do the heat's on.
Hi, Ron. Sorry, I was. Is that in your way? No. That's good. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Lynn Haven City Commission for the date Tuesday, December 13th, 2016. At this time, if you would stand with me for the invocation. Father, I'd just like to thank you for this opportunity for us to meet in a free and cordial and open discussion of our city's business, and we thank you for each member of the City of Lynn Haven staff who's here, for each member of the board who gives their time to try and make Lynn Haven a better place, for our attorney, for our Lynn Haven Police Department, our fire department, for all their families during this very special time of the year. Please be with each of us, make us mindful of our many blessings, and help us to reach out to those who might be in need at this very special time of the year. In Christ's name we pray, amen. You join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. I apologize. I didn't mean to make that a one-woman show there. I forgot to ask someone to ask the invocation before we got started, so I just jumped in there. Start out with item number, before I go to item number 3, the mayor's report. If someone from the board could make a motion for us to excuse Commissioner Shad, who is out of town for this meeting.
Move approval. Second.
Thank you. The motion has been seconded. Commissioner, would the city manager please call the roll?
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and so Commissioner Shad is excused today, and we do miss him. For the mayor's report, just have a few items. On November 17th, we were host to the Bay County League of Cities representatives here in the city of Lynn Haven. We had a really good meeting and finalized plans for our December meeting. And then last night was our special end of the year Bay League of Cities. It was a dinner and a board meeting and a toy raising event for the Sheriff's Department, and we met at the Martin Theater, and it was all of the elected officials, city managers, and city staff, as well as sponsors who met last night. It was a lovely evening. Nevin Zimmerman, who is the city attorney for Panama City, is also a choir director in his spare time, and he had a group of high school musicians and singers who came and entertained, and it's really, really inspiring to see the talent in our high schools that we have here. Very excited about Lynn Haven's tree lighting ceremony on December 2nd and the Christmas parade the following morning. I just want to say how thankful we are to Maria Stout-Tate and her staff at Leisure Services, and Tracy Johnson, her events coordinator, and also to Major Reamer, the police department, the first responders, all who turned out and made that such a wonderful event, and have had nothing but positive feedback about that parade on Florida Avenue, and how people felt so safe there off that main highway, and just it was a very neighborhood, small town event, so we had a great time. And the final thing I'd like to share with you, if you noticed when you came in, there's a table in the foyer. You might want to look at it on your way out. But I've entered into sort of a partnership with Lynn Haven Elementary School students as we've started fundraising for the Splash Park that's underway, and asked them for their ideas about how they would like the Splash Park to be designed. And I have this many in my hand, and then I just put some examples out in the hallway. The prevailing design seems to be something to do with marine life. However, there were volcanoes, there were dinosaurs, there were battleships, pirate ships, so very entertaining to look at. They are very excited about the splash pad. So that concludes my report, other than I have one more thing, probably the most important of my report, is the proclamation for wreaths across America that I would like to read at this time, and then at the end of the meeting, I could meet with you and pass this on, and we can do a photograph if you like, okay? The proclamation: members of the Telecom Pioneers Central Florida Panhandle Group Number 33 are proud to partner with the City of Lynn Haven and Wreaths Across America, a nonprofit organization that recognizes the courage and sacrifices of U.S. veterans by placing wreaths on the graves of the fallen during the holiday season. And whereas on December 17, 2016, Telecom Pioneers Central Florida Panhandle Group Number 33 will help lay wreaths at Mount Hope Cemetery and Lynn Haven Community Cemetery. And whereas the wreath-laying ceremonies are made possible by the generous commitment of Worcester Wreath Company of Harrington, Maine, which donated tens of thousands of wreaths for the nationwide observance this year. And whereas Wreaths Across America began in 2006 as an offshoot of the Arlington National Cemetery Wreath Project, which started in 1992 with the annual placement of wreaths donated by Worcester Wreath Company. And whereas the Telecom Pioneers Central Florida Panhandle Group Number 33 is partnering with Wreaths Across America, a nonprofit organization with a mission to remember, honor, and teach about the service and sacrifices of our nation's veterans, and whereas members of the public have sponsored placement of more than 325,000 Worcester Wreath Company wreaths on veterans' graves throughout the U.S. and abroad. Now, therefore, I, Margot Deal Anderson, Mayor of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, do hereby proclaim December 17, 2016 as Wreaths Across America Day throughout the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, and ask that everyone join me in supporting this worthwhile project. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the official seal of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, to be affixed this 13th day of December 2016. And I do want to remind everyone that this wreath-laying ceremony will be this coming Saturday, December 17th. Unfortunately, I'm out of town, but hopefully we can have a good representing group there. It's a beautiful ceremony, and it's really it's fun to come and join and remember, but it's also a very solemn ceremony to take part in, and I did that last year and enjoyed it very much. So let me present this to you at this time, and then that way if you don't want to sit through all of our meeting, you won't feel like you need to. At this time, we'll have item number 4, the Commissioner's report. Commissioner Ashbrook, do you have a report?
Just, excuse me, the final TPO meeting was held last week. Commissioner Friend was in attendance as well. 2 things I'll mention, and in deference to him, leave some other things for him to mention. One was that the Rails to Trails application through TIF was finalized for this year, so that money will be forthcoming in the next fiscal year from the state of Florida. And also, I spoke with Keith Bryant, the county engineer, and sometime shortly, I would say sometime in the spring, they'll probably begin some work on that turn lane that we have talked about over the years on 389, where you have the confluence of 26th Street coming east and west out of Cameron's Crossing and the new 26th Street that we did several years ago. So there has been, I believe, a couple of meaningful accidents on that intersection just because of the traffic coming both northbound and southbound. So hopefully that turn lane will give some relief to the ones who are impatient, trying to continue their journey north and south on 389. So that's all I have to offer at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Barnes?
Just want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas. Please be safe and hope you enjoy your holiday season.
Thank you. Commissioner Friend?
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, we attended the Uber workshop at Bay County and had an unbelievable turnout there. And Mayor did an excellent job speaking to the commissioners and sharing, I think, a lot of the viewpoints from Lynn Haven on that. So that was really well done. And also had the TPO meeting and humbled and honored to be selected again to represent the TPO at the MPO AC. So if anybody ever has any questions or comments, not only about the TPO, but the MPO AC, which is a network of all of the TPOs across the state of Florida that get together quarterly to discuss transportation issues for the entire state, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be glad to go over any kind of issues you may have. And of course, it's all on the web as far as our agenda and stuff like that is concerned. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. And just as an added note to the Uber workshop on December 6th, if you weren't able to attend or didn't see what followed, the County Commission decided to began sort of an investigation into the Hillsborough County, Florida agreement with Uber. There were Uber representatives at the workshop, and at this point they're trying to sort of reconcile a path for all the cities and the county to come together in an agreement of an Uber ordinance so that possibly maybe even within weeks we could have that service here all across Bay County. And if you're not familiar with Uber, it's an online ride service that you can actually just call someone who's waiting nearby in your neighborhood who operates as an Uber driver to pick you up and take you where you want to be. It's affordable and safe, and we're all very excited about this new mode of transportation in Bay County. Moving on to item number 5, the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to mention, too, the Christmas with the Cops and Friends. The LHPD is putting that on. That is December 17th, 2016, of course. It's from 2 to 5:30. It's in our sports complex. There's a lot of events there, a lot of free events, and we look forward to that. I believe this is the inaugural one, and proud of the LHPD for taking the initiative to put this on. I'd also like to echo the mayor's comments about the 2 last special events that were put on. I think our staff did an excellent job, and I've gotten a lot of positive feedback about that as well. But if you want further information about the next one, it's on the website as well as our Facebook page. 26th Street, Commissioner Ashbrook mentioned the tail end of it there. If you haven't noticed, the speed limit was 25 ever since we redid the road several years ago, and we've been getting a lot of comments and feedback, and we took a look at it and analyzed the data, and we've increased it to 30, and we'll take another look at that in another 6 months and see if 35 is a viable option, but we believe, based on the data, that 30 was, so probably shouldn't advertise that. Still think it's 25, that way they go 32 or 33, and they're still good, but we think that was a good move. I wanted to mention in January, I'd like to plan a workshop with the commission and discuss what the staff and I have developed along with the city engineer, a capital improvement plan, a high-level view. It actually fits on one spreadsheet of all the major infrastructure projects in the next 5 years and then also the next 10 years. So it's a 5 to 10-year plan. We prioritized it 1 through 3, each item. All the major infrastructure items are categorized on there as well, and I'll send that out this week. Obviously, there's more than 1 or 2 ones, and the same with the 2s and 3s, but certainly we want to get your feedback on that before we move forward. As part of that workshop as well, as you know, the half-cent sales tax passed in November, and the main item that Lynn Haven had was the roads rehab, taking a hard look at our roads, and instead of this incremental approach that, just based on our budget, we were spending $250,000 to $350,000 a year, which is not enough. We did have the city engineer complete a very detailed study on that, and that's been triaged into 3 different segments as far as 0 to 5 years, needs attention, 5 to 10, and then a 10 to 20. So it's a 20-year plan, but I'd like them to present that and everything that's entailed in it as part of that capital improvement plan workshop as well. And, you know, as far as our transparency, I think that'll go a long way. That document's been on the web for about 6 or 8 months, and we also shop that out there for all the constituents and those interested, especially Lynn Haven residents, as well as Bay County. This is where that money would go if the half-cent sales tax were passed. So Thursday and Friday, I wanted to mention I'm out due to a death in the family, and that's all I have.
Thank you. The city attorney's report.
Yes, ma'am. I just want to talk briefly with the commission about ordinance number 1026, which is number 17 on the agenda today. This deals with medical marijuana, and as I'm sure everyone here knows, that it's a kind of rapidly changing landscape with the medical marijuana. You know, it was passed by Citizen Initiative constitutional amendment in November of this year. And really, there aren't a lot of set rules yet because it was passed by that process. Just for some dates that you all know, the amendment isn't effective until January of 17. And then the 6 months is how long the Department of Health has to adopt some regulations, and then adopting the card process 9 months later. In response to kind of this rapidly changing landscape, a lot of cities and counties are basically kind of setting a wait-see period, kind of put more temporary moratorium on any kind of medical marijuana activities. It doesn't mean that they're not going to be adopted. It just means that really to avoid chaos and kind of bring a little organization to the process, that they're adopting these temporary moratoriums until the state can get these rules done. And so that's what this ordinance does. It basically puts a temporary moratorium on any kind of medical cannabis activities until those rules are settled. Originally, I had drafted it as basically a supermajority ordinance, an emergency ordinance, which could be approved tonight and we'd be done with it. But after talking with the mayor and the city manager, they suggested that we just go through the normal ordinance process. So although it says approval on the agenda, that could be changed to first reading, and that it'll be finally considered in January. There's one caveat I have with that, and that is to basically put anybody on notice that the city commission intends not to process any applications until that ordinance gets finally considered. So I would request that the commission pass a motion to direct staff not to process any applications for medical marijuana activities until this ordinance is finally considered.
Thank you for that report. And just to add to what the city attorney was just saying about the emergency ordinance, instead of doing it that way, to do it as just a regular first reading and then approval next time. In our discussion before the meeting, my concern was that because the state of Florida overwhelmingly voted to pass the medical marijuana usage in Florida, I've had feedback from citizens who've been watching some of the other cities who've done the emergency ordinance, and they were concerned that the voters' voice was being held back by city or municipal governments. And so my thought on this when I was speaking with the attorney and the city manager is that if we have, instead of rushing to do an emergency ordinance, if we have a first reading tonight, then that gives time for any public input and public opinion about this before we pass it as an ordinance next month. So that was my thought process on that. At this time, moving on to item number 7, which is a public hearing. I can't see the clock on the back wall, so I'm just going to, my watch says it is 4:16. And the public hearing is opened, and this is the final plat application with Shoreline Village Phase 1C, and so we have staff report from Ms. Amanda Richard.
Final plat application, I'm just going to wait for it to come up on the screen, from Shoreline Village 1C, Florida, 2015 LLC. The development order for the entirety of Phase 1 of Shoreline Village was approved a few years ago, and as Phase 1 is developed into sub-phases, you will be getting the preliminary plats and the final plats coming before you. This is the final plat for Phase 1C. The agent is Jonathan Skolarski from Dewberry Preble Rish, and he is here tonight The location is Mills Bayou Boulevard off Highway 390. It's a TND land use. The size of this phase is 13.5 acres approximately, and the plan is to construct 51 single-family homes in this phase. This is the final plat. The preliminary plat came before you on September the 12th and was approved, and this final plat was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission last Tuesday on December 6th. This shows the location here for Phase 1C. So it's north of the school and Phase 1A, Phase 1B. And then the final plat was in your packets. Jonathan Skolarski is here if you have any specific detail questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there questions or concerns from the board? There appear to be none. Are there any comments or questions from the public regarding this? Okay.
Can I just mention that we have the Mylar here, which needs to be signed this evening. So if the elected officials and the attorney can sign the Mylar before they leave, then that would be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It is now 4:21 and the public hearing is closed. The next items on the agenda are the consent agenda, items 8 through 13. I'll read all of these together and ask for a motion and a second to approve, and then at that time there will be time for both the board or the public if you have concerns about one of the individual items. Item number 8, the minutes from the 11:15 regular meeting. Item number 9 is to approve the Florida Department of Transportation Highway Traffic Safety Grant to replace the vehicle wrap on the police department's Click It or Ticket truck. Item number 10 is renewal of concession stand food lease with Morris Enterprises. Item number 11, approve the submittal of a Florida Department of Environmental Protection grant application for sand and grit removal at the wastewater treatment plant and authorize the mayor to sign all related documents. Item number 12, to approve the submittal of a federal fiscal year 2016 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Direct Grant application for the purchase of equipment for the police department. And item number 13 is to approve the disposal of surplus vehicles and equipment. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? Only one left.
That was a tie, yeah.
I think Commissioner
I'll go
Fred was the second. I'm
alphabetically.
not sure who the first was. Okay, any questions or discussion from the board on the consent agenda? If not, are there any items that any member of the public has a question or a comment or a concern with? There appears to be none. We've had a motion and a second. Then, Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. And so items 7 through 13 are approved as written. New business. Item number 14, discussion and possible action regarding extending the city manager's employment contract under the current terms. Did you have any comment you wanted to make? Or?
Yes, Mayor, I just had a brief comment. Respectfully, I'm requesting a 3-year extension on my contract under the current terms. I am proud of the city's accomplishments over the past 3 years and thank the Commission for their support and direction as well as the hardworking and competent city staff.
Thank you. Is there a motion or a discussion from the board?
Move approval.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or questions? I just have one. With this contract, what is the actual date that the contract will be renewed? Is it April, or is it an extension of, I'm not sure when this contract begins now and when it ends.
My understanding it'd be in April. Would it extend? That's probably more appropriately directed to the city attorney. I brought it up. The agreement was agreed upon in March, and then I actually started work April the 14th. So I would defer to this.
2014?
Yes, Mayor. I
And
defer to the city attorney to when the 3 years would start after that.
The contract's effective date was April 17th, 2014, so this would extend the contract for 3 years from the end of the contract term, which would be April 17th, 2017, so for another 3 more years.
So we would be looking at April 2017 with the contract being possibly up for review in April of 2020. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there any comments or questions from the public? Okay, Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. So the motion stands approved. Item number 15, discussion and possible action regarding final plat application for the Shoreline Village, Phase 1C, FP-16-02. Is there a staff report on this item before we ask for a motion and second?
Do you-
The same. No additional information, we're just, okay. Is there a motion then?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any additional questions from the board? Any questions or concerns from the public? Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll for item number 15?
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. So item 15 stands approved. Item number 16 is discussion and possible action regarding approval of a development order for Cameron's Crossing Subdivision Phase 2, CCS LLC, and this is a quasi-judicial hearing, and so if there is someone to be sworn in.
Yes, ma'am. Item number 17, or excuse me, 16 is a quasi-judicial hearing of the City of Lynn Haven. If any board member has had any ex parte communications with the applicant or the city about this, please go ahead and disclose that on the record.
I've had none.
I just, in passing at a restaurant, I just briefly spoke about it. Just, that's it.
I've had no discussion regarding this.
I've had no discussion.
Thank you. And everybody who plans on presenting any kind of testimony on item number 16, please go ahead and raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're going to provide is the truth upon penalty of perjury? Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Application for a development order for Cameron's Crossing Phase 2. The applicant is CCS LLC and the agent is Jeffrey Peterman PE from Panhandle Engineering. But I believe that Chris Forehand is here tonight to answer any questions for Panhandle Engineering. The location is immediately east of the existing Cameron's Crossing Phase 1. The land use is low-density residential. The size is approximately 24.5 acres, and they are proposing 57 single-family homes on this development with this development order. This development order was approved by the Planning Commission on July the 19th, 2016. This is, let me get to the aerial. The areas that the 3 yellow stars on this aerial show the entirety of the land that will be used for this Phase 2. That weird little shape on the right-hand side on the east there is stormwater, will be a stormwater facility. And here was the plat which you had in your packets, and on the left-hand side there where you see that connecting road will be connecting to Dragonfly Lane, which is in the existing Phase 1, Cameron's Crossing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from the board?
I just had one. It's probably just a yes and no answer, but is DEP happy with the retention pond
Yes.
designs as opposed to wet and dry and all that hassle from
Yes.
years before? Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board while Mr. Forehand's at the podium? Any questions from the public? And there appear to be none. There is possible action on this item. Is there a motion?
So moved. Oh, my gosh. So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. No further discussion from the public? No questions? Mr. Schubert, please call the roll.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, so the motion has carried. The last item is public commentary. If there's anyone present who would like to discuss any item of interest in the city of... Pardon me?
1026. You have the old, this is an amended agenda.
Thank you. I don't have the amended agenda where 17 was changed. I apologize. Item number 17 is ordinance 1026. It will be the first reading for a temporary moratorium on medical cannabis activities in the city of Lynn Haven. Is there a motion that we just need a reading of the ordinance? I'm sorry.
City Attorney, do I read it as stated, the original?
Take out the word emergency in the first part. That's it.
An ordinance of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, establishing a temporary moratorium on growing, cultivating, processing, manufacturing, dispensing, distribution of, and the wholesale or retail sale of medical cannabis, low THC cannabis, and derivative products, or any related activities, establishing a temporary moratorium until August 15, 2017 on such medical cannabis activities within the city, directing staff to review and, if necessary, develop land use regulations and other recommendations regarding medical cannabis activities, establishing an effective date and termination date.
Okay, thank you. That would complete the first reading of ordinance 1026, and then we will have a second reading on the January agenda.
And Mayor, if I could, I suggested earlier that the commission pass a motion to direct staff not to process any applications or permits for medical cannabis activities until this ordinance is finally considered.
I move that we accept the attorney's recommendation.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to accept the attorney's recommendation that the city not process any applications for activity concerning medical cannabis in the city of Lynn Haven until this ordinance has been read a second time and brought before the board for action. Correct? Is there a motion?
It's been a motion and a second.
So we're already good. This time, Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and so this motion has carried. I do apologize for the confusion in the reading of this. It just appeared on the agenda yesterday, and we've had quite a bit of discussion today with attorney and trying to make sure we had this in the way we should go forward. So I apologize for any confusion. Item number 18 would now be public commentary. If anyone is present who has any issue or concern in the city of Lynn Haven that you would like to discuss, please come forward at this time. Well, everyone's either very pleased or tired tonight, so I'm sure the rest of the commission joins with me in wishing you all a very Merry Christmas and a happy holiday season with your families. Please be safe, and once again, just want to say how much the City of Lynn Haven appreciates the city staff for all that you have done in this year to make it such a great year for all the citizens here. Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.